Hey, good evening, everybody. Mike Caruso, publisher of the Fisherman magazine, and we're honored to host our first webinar. The topic tonight is snap-jigging with Captain John Paduano. It should be a very instructional night. This is a very effective technique to catch all kinds of inshore species and freshwater as well. I'm going to turn it over to John now. Enjoy our show.
Hey, good evening, everybody. I'm going to try to explain what snap-jigging is, how it works, what you need to do it effectively. If it wasn't by far the best technique ever to catch fish all over the world, fresh, salt, big, small, deep, whatever, I wouldn't be doing this. I'm telling you right now, you put the time, you put the effort, and it'll make you catch tenfold. It's not very easy to get the hang of. Some people pick it up right away. I've had charters where 2 hours, the guy, he's got it back down, down to a science, and his buddy is like, forget it. At the end of the day, still no good. So what I'm going to do is first explain why it works, in my opinion. I'm not a fisheries biologist or anything like that, but what I think happens, and I'm going to explain to that, then I'm going to explain what you need to effectively pull it off. All right. And people have been to my seminar. This is going to be old news, but I have to explain it again to the people who haven't, because it's very important to learn why you have to, why it works. When you go down to a dock or you see any kind of bait fish and you startle them, the first thing they do is they just dart. If they're schooling fish like bunkers, shiners, sardines, pilchards, any of them, what they're trying to do is swim as fast as they can in front of their brothers and sisters, and their slow kin behind them are the ones that are going to get eaten. If it's not a schooling fish, they're just going to dart and then look for someplace to hide. But all fish, all bait fish, even shrimp, crabs, they'll dart when they know a predator is after them. But the predator knows that the smaller fish can only dart for so long, and they got to stop. They got to slow down. They just don't have the stamina to do it. So when you have a striped bass, a tarpon, a snook, anything going after a bait fish, and that bait fish darts, first of all, the fish is, he doesn't think like us, but it's like an instinctive. He's either got to let it go or he's got to go after it because he knows it's going to slow down and it'll be easy pickings. So that's the visual aspect of it. Another thing that people really don't take into account when they go fishing a lot is the lateral line of a fish. The lateral line of a fish takes up a very large proportion of the fish's brain to run that. The sensory cells in there are very similar to our ear cell, our hair ear. Our inner ear can hear and feel disturbances in the air. These are in water, which is a lot denser, a lot thicker, and carry signals a lot better. These fish, they do everything because of their lateral line. Sight is just a second, in my opinion, a second option for them. But when you have the visual aspect of that bait fish fleeing, and then with that snap, you get that bow wave on that jig. Now they see it and they feel it, and it's just like they can't help themselves. And that's why a lot of times we'll be out fishing, and my charters will be like, how come everybody's looking at us? And it's because we're the only ones who's catching. Even when the fish are not on the feed, when they're on the feed, anybody could catch them with I could put a string bean on a sidewalk and can catch a striped bass. But when they're not on the feed, that's when this really shines. So that's basically why it works. It imitates what a bait fish naturally does. When you just sit there, just like bounce it, jiggling it. First of all, it's not imparting much action on the jig because of the line out, the bow into the water, a little bit of wind loop on it, wind bow in it. You're not imparting much. But when you really snap it hard, that lure is taking off and it's triggering these fish to eat. What to do? All right. First, you're going to cast out, and depending on the species, if you're out and you're going after mahi, obviously you're not going to let it hit the bottom. But for most of our species up on the Northeast, a very large percentage of the fish are on the bottom, and definitely the large percentage of the bigger fish are on the bottom. So the best idea, the thing to do on around our area, Long Island, the Sound, Montauk, South Shore, is to be close to the bottom if you want more fish and bigger fish. So you got to learn to feel the bottom. So you're going to cast out, feel the bottom, and then you're going to snap it hard. And it's kind of hard to explain how you do it, but it's like your wrist, your elbow, and your shoulder all at once. And I'll actually put it up against my arm just to make, use my whole arm as the fulcrum. And then once you get it up, once you snap it up, you got to take a turn, drop it down a little bit, and then just slowly lower the rod tip down until you see that line slack off a little bit and snap it up again. The fish are always going to hit on the drop. So you're going to snap it up. You're going to take a turn. Normally, if there was no current, you're going to take a turn and then drop it down till you see the line, and you're going to watch it. It's very visual. This is all visual. You're going to watch the line until you see it slack off or any kind of movement. That's a fish that hits it or the bottom, and you just continue to do that. What you definitely need is a rod with a moderate bend, and I'm going to show you right now why you need that. You're going to see in this video right here me load the rod. It's going to be in slow motion. You're going to see me drop it. You're going to see how the rod loads and snaps up and goes down. Now I'm watching. If you're looking at the video, I'm watching the line. I'm slowly dropping the rod tip because that lets you, it makes the when it hits the bottom a lot easier to see. If you just hold it and that bucktail's coming down on an angle, you won't see it much. Then once it hits the bottom, I'm going to go down a little bit and load that rod up, and right there, and bang, snap that, get that going, get that pressure wave going, and then reel up a couple turns and go back down. Now, you need, as you can see in this video, a rod with a very moderate bend. That's a problem because most rods that are around are very fast. What I mean is they bend up at the top. This rod, Tim, if you can give me a hand here. I want to show you what I mean here. This rod, you can see the bend right here. All right? That puts the leverage only pretty much from here to here, which is a lot easier on your arms. So you need a 6-foot rod, maybe 6'3" if it has a soft tip, but anything more than a 6-foot rod, and your wrists are gonna kill you. I mean, I've been doing this a long time, a very, very long time. And even when I did tree work and had forearms like Popeye, I couldn't, if it didn't have an action like this, I'd be tired in no time. Sometimes in deeper water, I will use a heavier rod. I got one here. I'll show you the difference. And I'll show you where the bend is on this and the leverage. Now, I don't know what the proportion is of the force from a leverage, but you can see on here, the bend is, I can't even reach up where the bend is. So the leverage is a lot more. And when I do have to use this rod, and with the little bit heavier jigs and stuff, I find myself cheating, trying to, I'm not snap-jigging very well. So even in deep water, a lot of times I'll find myself with this moderate action rod, which is, like I said, it's very hard to find. There are a few rod makers that make them. This one was made by Matt on Northeast Rod Works. So that's the rod aspect of it. The next thing you need is the light line. It's got to be 10-pound test. Now, I give seminars, and people come out on the boat that have been to my seminars, and I'll tell them, you need 10-pound test, braid. It's got to be light colored so you can watch it. And they'll come out on the boat, and I'm like, I can't feel bottom. I was like, well, first of all, you got green. I mean, I'll go insane trying to use green doing this. And I look at it, I was like, what pound test is that? Oh, it's 20. I was like, even though I emphasize the most important thing is 10-pound braid and light color, they still come out with the wrong. And in 5 minutes, they got to hang that rod up because it's useless. I mean, even I find it nearly impossible, the difference between 10-pound braid and light color line and 20-pound and green. If I was stuck with 20-pound and green out there, I'd go home. I mean, it makes that much of a difference. And you might be saying, 10-pound test. How do you catch fish with 10-pound test? I mean, I started my career, pretty much just surf fishing. And when I started it, we all used 15-pound Andy. You know, if you were on the jetty, you used 15-pound Andy monofilament. South Shore, 15-pound Andy. Montauk, some of the guys went to 20. I'd go out there with 15-pound Andy. And 15-pound Andy, when it's fresh off the spool, it probably breaks, you know, a little higher, maybe 20. You give it a day and it gets that chalky look. I mean, that stuff's probably breaking at 15. This 10-pound braid is breaking at over 20-pound test as long as you could tie a decent knot. So, you know, that's and I could bring in fish. I got a video on here. I'm not going to really show it because it's 5 minutes long, but it shows me fighting a fish that's about 40 pounds. In 5 minutes, I got the fish in. And we get fish in just as quick as other people with the heavy tackle. You just learn how to fight the fish a little better. Let me see what I got here. Okay, this while I'm talking, now I'm going to hold off on that. So now go back. I'm getting a little off track here, but that's the rod. The reels. There's two things where you really need a good reel. When you're fishing very light or you're fishing very heavy for tuna, your tackle better be up to par. If it's not, it's gonna come out. So this kind of fishing, you really need the right tackle. You need a really good reel that's not gonna start chattering on the drag and giving you problems. I mean, I'm not one to pay a lot of money for stuff, but this is a great reel. I mean, I love it. It's very light. I think it's less than 9 ounces. It's got great gears. It's not going to, you know, they're not brass. They're hardened stainless steel, you know, over 3 feet a turn. It's all the stuff that you need, light, and an excellent drag. And you don't have to worry about this reel failing. I tried other reels. You know, there are some better reels out there. The Penn Spinfisher 6. I use that on my charters. And I'm not going to have. I've had rods go over from clients. I can't be putting Van Stalls on all the rods. So I'll use the Penn Spinfisher 6. It's a little heavier, but it's got a decent drag. And, you know, it works well. But I would highly recommend it's, you know, this is like my main rod and reel. I use this everywhere. I go to the Keys, I use this. I go everywhere with this rod and reel. And if you start doing snap jigging, you're going to be doing the same thing. This is all you're going to want. So I would strongly suggest getting a very good rod and reel. It's you know, in the long-term use of it is going to be well worth it. Like I said, the line, you can, as long as you can see it and it's yellow, chartreuse, white, whatever, it'll be fine. You just got to be able to see it. Even if you have a bad wind, you can still feed it down and watch it hit the bottom. Now, a little tip I'll give you is, like, most of the time you're going to be fishing in the same area. You know, you're going to start in your backyard. You're not going to be going all over the place. So once you learn a certain area, you'll learn how long to wait to hit the bottom. Like if I'm on Great Eastern in Montauk, I throw it out. It's like a fifth, sixth sense. Like I'll know just to pick it up. And as I do, bang, I'm on the bottom. What you could do is, if you're, like, say you're in Bayshore and you're fishing Fire Island, go to Fire, you know, first time you really concentrate, cast out, and you just count how long it takes to hit the bottom at that one spot. So the next time you get cast out, you could do things as you mentally count in your head. And, you know, a few seconds before it hits bottom, just pay attention, bang, you're on the bottom, and it just makes it a lot easier. You know, and this isn't just for around here. This is extremely effective in the Keys. I mean, I could tell you stories. I was, you know, we're down there, say I'm at Long Key Bridge, it happened. And, you know, we're out there one day, we show up, all the guys are out there, we're fishing, we catch a bunch of tarpon. Next day we go out there, same thing. We don't see anybody else catch up. The third day we went out there, half the guys just up and left. I mean, it's that effective. It outfishes guides that are using mullet, crabs. It's just a very effective technique. Mainly, I think, because it's very lifelike. It's light tackle. You don't see heavy stuff. And second, they're not used to it. Now, this goes with the fresh water too. I mean, you could do this with the lighter rods. the lighter lures, the lighter jigs. You got to be proportioned in how hard and how far you pull it. I mean, if you're using a marabou jig, if you're using a marabou jig like this, in real life, that little sucker is not going to go flying 6 feet. So you're still going to snap, but it's only going to be 2 or 3 feet. So you got to kind of like put it in proportion. But what people don't realize is just how effective it is on pretty much everything. I mean, I've got 12-pound blackfish snap jigging for sea bass. We've had days where we've had, half a dozen blackfish just coming up while we're going for stripers. I mean, nobody thinks that a blackfish would eat a jig, but they definitely do. And if you really want to catch them, throw some gulp sand eels on it and snap jig with them. Which brings me to the lures. Now, what you want pretty much with the lures is it to run true and straight. So to really do the snap jigging right, you need a bucktail. I prefer to have I've been tying these things since the late 80s. The round head, it runs true, no twisting, no turning. If you got a spro head, it'll turn, style H. Some of them can twist and turn. Now, the bucktail is by far the best. These, the ones I make are, I got the feathers that you can see. You can see the feathers on that. What's that? The feathers will, you could cast them a mile. They sink without much resistance at all. And when, you snap them, they don't hold the bucktail back. And then once you slow down and the bucktail starts going down, they give action. The other trailers that we normally would put on a bucktail add too much drag. The curly tails, the pork rind, it's just too much drag, and you can't get that quick snap. Now, that kind of bucktail and technique with the pork rind and stuff is great in the evening or at night when the fish are mainly feeding with their lateral line, and you need that heavy disturbance of the water for them to find it and really key in on it. That's when, you could just put the ugliest bucktail you're on there, as long as it has a lot of hair and, it's pork rind or whatever, and it's good. Daytime, you want something that looks realistic. That's why I got the really big eyes on the bucktails, the realistic shading. Another thing about the feathers is in all of the natural material out there, feathers reflect more ultravioletly than any other material. So once you get down and lower in the water column, say you're 40, 50 feet, most colors are gone, but the ultraviolet really, and the fish can see it, it stands out, and they key in on that pretty easy. We do at times, especially if there's bluefish around, I'll switch to rubbers, and this is what I usually use. A little jerk shad, so you guys at home can see a little jerk shad with the split tail. You don't want a curly tail. You don't want a grub tail. Paddle tail. It's way too much resistance. You're not going to. It's not going to sink fast enough for you. This will actually, if you're learning, this is a good lure to use because it's very streamlined, and those thousands of hairs on a bucktail all add water resistance, and plus they're all hollow. So that bucktail is going to sink a little slower than this will. So if you're not used to feeling bottom, this is a great way to start. Use a jig head, a regular jerk shad with a straight tail. It'll sink to the bottom. You'll be able to feel fish on the bottom, and you'll catch fish. I've got fish over 50 pounds on this jig. All right. But it's not as good as the bucktail. For instance, I was out with my friend Mike, Tom Caruso, and he was out in Montauk. I was like, come on out with me. So we're out there, and the bluefish were all over. So I'm like, the heck with this. I make these things. I'm not going to throw them to bluefish. So we started using the plastics, and we're catching fish. But I told him, I was like, that there's got to be a bigger fish around here. So I took the bay anchovy, I put it on, made one cast, and he'll be my witness. And bang, I got a fish close to 50 pounds on that with the bucktail, because I knew they needed the bucktail. They needed that hard snap. You really can't do the hard snap with this, because no matter, and this, if you can see that's on pretty straight. You know, I put the bucktail, you know, the things on straight, and even very straight, it's still going to twist and turn more than a bucktail will. The bucktail will always run true. This will twist and turn, and for some reason, you know, the fish don't seem to like that much. And that goes about with the lures. I mean, you could do it, the snap jigging from shore. You could do it from the boat. What I would like to tell you is if you're doing it from shore, I mean, it's very effective from the shore. I must have went, every time somebody comes up and asks me, because, you know, when I'm doing it, especially this year from the beach, they, you know, when they ask me, what the heck are you doing? You know, I'll always give them a bucktail. If they got the, you know, if they could come up to me and say, what are you doing? I'll give them a bucktail and I'll tell them what to do and show them. Most of them, almost none of them have the right tackle, but I'll explain to them what they need. But I go through a couple dozen bucktails, you know, just giving it to people that come up, because that's how effective it is, that I have people coming up and asking me what the heck I'm doing. It's a little, the surf is a little bit harder and it's a little bit more complex, because you got to cast a lot of times the distance to hit the bars. Therefore, your jig is going to be more prone to be on the bottom. So you really got to work hard to snap it and keep it off the bottom. But it's extremely effective. I mean, on this rod, I have fished to 46 inches, I think it is. I don't have the picture here. But this spring, just snap jigging from beach, you know, quite a few 30s, a lot of 20s. But even if you don't have the big fish around, we were lucky this year. We had a great fishery, especially Smith Point. We had a great fishery this fall. But, you know, if you're on the beach and all you're catching is 18 to 22, 24 inches, I mean, you know, not for nothing, but to me, they're not much fun on an 11-foot rod. But you pick this up there and you start catching them on this rod, forget about it. You're going to love it. And this rod is, you know, a lot more, the light tackle is a lot more fun. You learn to, it's like, I try to like explain it, like it's almost like a dance. You learn how to fight a fish very well. You learn exactly when to start pulling them in, and you'll be amazed at how well you can get when you fight when you're fighting them on the light tackle. Like right here is my girl Lenny, and she's got a big fish. You can see that rod bent. She hooked it, but she keeps that pressure on it. Now she's only had this fish on for a minute before I started. 2 minutes, you know, it took one run. She's bringing it back in. And she knows when to pull. She knows, you know, when to hold up, let the fish take. And it's coming up now. But you can see these little rods. I mean, they definitely looks overmatched, but they're not. They work extremely well. I make believers all the time. They can't believe it. You know, they promise. You know, they just promise to come out over and over. You'll see how big this fish when she lifts it up. She's going to lift it up in a minute. But this, I believe this fish, if I'm not mistaken, was probably taken on the power bait. Let me see if I can see what's in his mouth. No, that's a bucktail. It's a bay anchovy. But, you know, when she picks it up, it's going to take her a second. She's a little beat. You can see the size of the kind of fish, you know, the size of the fish that you can get on this tackle very easily. I mean, I got some huge fish on this tackle. I got tarpon to 180 pounds on this tackle. And come on, pull it up. Let's get this over with. All right, there. And you can see that's a big fish. Now, you know, she got that, and it's, let me tell you, it's people on my boat, you know, when I'm chartering, they got grins from ear to ear. And the thing is, if you're on another boat or you're out on your boat and you're going with the standard fare for stripers, you're just going to catch pretty much stripers or bluefish. But we get everything. We get, you know, this is my friend Saul. You get nice fluke. Just snap jigging for a bass. I had like a 42-pounder right as he caught that one. You get huge sea bass. I mean, we forget about it. We got the place going nuts over there with you know, really big sea bass. I mean, we've had days small sea bass is 22 inches. I mean, the sea bass really key on this. And you might ask why. You know, what do you usually use? Most people usually use clam. That sea bass in his whole life has probably never seen a piece of clam go floating by, but he's seen plenty of baitfish go by, sand eels, bergals, baby this, baby that, crabs, everything. So they're more prone to hit a moving boat, moving bait, especially if you're marking bait around in the area. And like I said, it's not just on the salt water. It's the fresh water is extremely effective. I go up to Salmon River, go steely fishing, and I drive them crazy. They're like, oh no, here comes the friggin' feather man. And I'll go down, make 5 casts sometimes and get 5 steelies and leave. I mean, the fish aren't used to seeing it. It's small. It imitates what they're feeding on, and it's extremely effective. And like I said, you catch everything. We got a mixed bag. You never know what you get. Pretty good with the permit on bucktails down there. It's everybody's like, oh, it's got to be a crab. You got to be stealthy. They hit the bucktails very well. It's very effective up until about a 45-foot depth. After that, like when you're in a boat and you're deeper than 45, it gets, especially when you're in an area like Montauk or some of the inlets where you got current that's moving at different speeds through the water column. Now that lines going down there, it's moving all over the place. So unless you're really, really good at feeling bottom, and sometimes even if you're really good, and I consider myself really good because I've been doing it forever, you still can't feel bottom. That's when we'll do what's kind of like called like a modified snap jigging, where you pretty much drop it down and feel the bottom, and it'll slowly move away from the boat because either the wind's pushing you a little bit. The water up top is always going to be moving a little faster than the water down below. So you're going to feel the bottom. You're going to snap it up, and then you're going to let it go back down, feel the bottom, snap it up. And as it moves away from you, you're going to have to let a little line out. So if that last time you felt the bottom and your rod was almost touching the water, you're going to snap up, and then you're going to just let a few feet out, and then let it go back down until you feel bottom. Keep doing that, and it won't be long. And you'll have fish. It'll work on the striped bass as well as everything else. Up here, I mean, we do very well when the albies are out on bucktails. I mean, you go out to Montauk, and it's like a free for all. Boats running over lines, they're going nuts. Chasing albies up on top. All you got to do, I mean, I'll wait till the albies go down. I'll throw a bucktail out, work the bottom. I'll catch one after another. I mean, these guys are killing themselves, running all over the place, cursing at each other, when all you have to do is throw it out, hit the bottom. I mean, sometimes I'm cursing at the albies because I'm trying to get some bass, and I'm keep catching the darn things. They just hit a lot better on the bottom, and when they're not up on top, they go back down. And it's a very easy way, an effective way to catch them when they're a little picky. I mean, if they're up on top and you could get them on tins, go for it. I mean, I'll do that too. But when they get picky and they go down lower, it seems like they're a lot more easily tempted into hitting, whether they can't see the leader as much, or they're just, taking an opportunity that they have to eat something, which brings me to the leader. I wasn't, a big fan of leaders, but when I started fishing the Keys and I started using fluorocarbon, I was a strong believer. So if it worked down in the Keys in the crystal clear water, it would work up here. Now I'm not trying to push any product, but I just use this. This is 40 yards of 20 on here. I keep this in my pocket. Every time I need a leader change, I'll take this out. I'll take my nail clipper, which probably, except for the 2 winter months, are in my pocket all the time. I don't care if I'm working or whatever. I'm going to have leader and nail clipper in my pocket. And I constantly change the leader. And I don't use any swivels or anything because of the light tackle that we have. I'll try to see if I can get this, show you how long it is. This leader is like, you can see it's almost at the rod tip, and it goes down to here. So this leader is about 6 foot, which is normally what I'll use. I don't use a leader because when you cast it, you're going to want this to get up there. You're going to want this knot to be around here. You don't want it to go down any further, as you're going to have a lot of problems with the knot whipping around. And you tie it on. Now, I tie with a double uni knot. I've caught a lot of really big fish with double uni knots. I'm a firm believer in double uni knot. This one's a little frayed. It's been used a lot, and that'll happen when you start casting it through. But the one advantage I have when I have leader like this, and every time I change the lure, I tie on, sooner or later, this leader, usually sooner, this leader is going to be too short. So what I do is just cut the leader off and put a new one on. Now, most people, they have a leader, they have a snap, they have a swivel, and they put that leader on their rod. That leader stays until they break it off. I mean, but within a few fish going over some rocks, that leader now gets opaque. It's not as crystal clear as it was when it was first put on. So what this does with me fishing like this, I pretty much always have fairly new leader on here. It's not getting weakened at the turns on the knot from the ultraviolet light like a regular leader would that's been on your rod out in the sun. It's strong, it's fresh, it's clear and nearly invisible. And, just for the few cents for the leader, I'll do it. I mean, when I go to the Keys, my biggest expense isn't food. It's my fluorocarbon leaders. I'll use mainly around 25-pound test. If the fish are going crazy and the water's a little off and I just want to get the fish up to the boat, and hold on a second, you guys are losing me here. Let me see if I can figure this out. Oh, yeah, I got it. The big fish, you want to get them up to the boat and, get them off without, you usually have your leader. You got 6 feet, you get it close, you grab the leader, you can handle them a little better. So, I'll go a little heavier if I can get away with it. Otherwise, 25, 30, that's my go-to leader up here. If I'm going for bonefish, obviously it's going to be a lot lighter. Permit's going to be a lot lighter. It depends on what you're going for. It's like I said, it's a very effective technique. Mahi, I've got fish over 40 pounds doing this, it just works for pretty much everything. So, but you got to pick your time. Like you go outside now and you're at a crappie pond and it's, the water's 32, 33 degrees. They're not going to chase a snap jig. You're going to have to use that thing slow. So, there are, there's never any absolutes in fishing. So, but for the most part, you learn this, you get it down, and you're gonna be out fishing everybody. I got people who come up to me every seminar and thank me for teaching them this because they can outfish everybody around them. And you don't have to wait until the spring to do this. There's plenty of fishing to be done with the light tackle. You could get this set up for under close to $100. This has 2-pound nano braid on it, 4-pound leader. But the good thing about this is you could pretty much go to any pond, not so much with the chartreuse jig, but black. You can go to any pond with the little black 1/32, 1/64 ounce jig and have a blast. One of my favorite times of the year is, the spring thaw in February, that Indian summer we usually get in the middle of the end of February. I mean, I look forward to it like going to the Keys or Costa Rica because it's just so much fun catching big bluegills. We get largemouths up here, 7-8 pounds on little black marabou jigs. I got one down in Orlando at my timeshare. It was 13 pounds on a 32nd ounce black marabou. And I'll tell a quick story, not to throw him under the bus, but my good friend Fred Galafaro took my timeshare one year when I was going to the Keys. So I gave him a little bag of little jigs. And I said, this is all you need. I'm telling you, this is all you need. So, the next day I talked to him. How'd you do? He goes, I don't know. I'm seeing fish. I was like, did you try the jigs? No, I'm going to try them tomorrow. Next day, no, nothing. I was like, did you use the jigs? It's like, no, I used my trusty spinnerbait, green chartreuse, whatever it is. He didn't get them. The third day, he finally got frustrated, put one of the jigs on, and in, I think, 3 casts in a row, had 3 decent fish. It's just like the bigger a lure is, the more a fish has to find wrong with it. If you're a largemouth and you see some little black thing going by, it could be, a baby fish, could be a leech, could be anything. They're just going to scop it down. It has no danger to them. So that's why they're more apt to eat the smaller fish, and it's extremely effective. But it's just it's unbelievable the size of the fish you could catch on a small hook. As long as you don't overpower with the line. And another good thing about that is you can, I mean, all my fishing in the spring is, I went through all my blacks. That's why they're not in here. Is you know, you can carry this around in your back pocket. This is all you need. This and your rod and a little spool of 4-pound test. I was just down New Year's Eve and going to my girlfriend Lynn's, and I decided to stop at a local tidal river, and I had a monster sea run trout on this rod here. Ended up losing them, but you know, he wrapped around a piling. But I got a good look at him, and he was a monster sea run. So there's a lot of opportunities to use, you know, the snap jigging in the winter. We got white perch, the carp. You know, you're not going to believe it, but carp love jigs. I mean, you gotta give them the snap and then slow it down after that. Get the snap to get their attention, let them feel it, and then slow it down. And you know, especially the 32nd ounce. Don't go any heavier than 32nd ounce because you got to move it slow once you snap it. But I mean, when you're in the middle of the winter and you're catching high teen to 20-pound carp on 2-pound test, you're going to have a smile from ear to ear. You know, it's, in my opinion, a lot better than going out dropping 3 pounds of lead for, you know, 25-inch cod. When you're in the boat, you know, I like, or an inlet, you know, anywhere, I like to have the fish are going to be facing. I like to have the bucktail come as close to perpendicular to the fish as I can. So you got to keep that in mind when you're in the boat, you know, but sometimes, not always. My friend Saul, for some reason, likes to throw behind the boat, and he catches his share of fish. But I think I get a lot more casting sideways. It's just unnatural, you know, if you're behind the boat, you know, when fish is facing upriver or upstream or up tide, to have bait fish coming towards them. And you really see that like in other kinds of fishing, like when tarpon, you know, you bring a lure towards a tarpon, a bait fish, a small lure towards it, the thing bolts because it's totally unnatural. So, you know, striped bass, I guess, are a little bit stupider than tarpon, but, you know, I just try to keep it perpendicular or at least feed it into them as it goes down. Another good thing, and I can't emphasize this enough about the light tackle, is no matter what kind of jigging you do, you know, you snap jig with a light tackle, you know, the big, this for fluke, for stripers, it all comes together and it all helps the other techniques. It all, you know, I don't know what the word would be, but, you know, it all helps to increase the effectiveness of the others because you learn a little bit about every other technique. Another good time to use this rod and reel is in the spring, April into May at Shinnecock Canal, which is really great because it's deep. You'll learn how to feel the bottom. You'll learn how to work the banks, the drop-offs, and the inclines, and you'll catch a ton of fish. I mean, you'll catch, you know, when they're in there, you get the weak fish. I had this past spring, I had one day, I had 25 fish on this setup, you know, striped bass. You know, none of them they were up to about keeper size, but, you know, you're going to have a blast. Fluke, tons of fluke. Early on, you got sundials that start early in April. Even big sea robins, you know, like sea robin. I'll tell you what, you got one of them monster sea robins on this, and you're going to be smiling. You know, it's fun, and like I said, you'll learn the technique, you learn how to work the bottom, and you know, it just will help you with all the other techniques that you have. Now, that being said, and normally on a seminar I'd have some live questions by now, so this is a little bit different from me, but I'm going to go into what most people do wrong, all right? What most people do wrong is, I can't do it in here because my ceiling's a little low, is when they snap, they drop it down. It's slack. You can't have slack, all right? The fish is always going to hit on the drop. So if you got slack, I mean, I got charters. I'm like, you got a fish. They'll set the hook, and they never knew it, but I'm watching the line, and I can see that the line jolted. I'm you know, what you call it? This, I got a thing up here. I have to worry about that. Epsom. The slack, you gotta, when you snap it, you want the jig to fall as fast as it can without giving a lot of slack. So you want a slight bow in that line. Like on that video I showed you here. All right, forget that video. The you got a slight bow in the line as you're going back down, and you feel the bottom, and it'll allow you to feel that bottom a lot easier if you have the line is a little bit tight. So, what 95% of the people would do is will snap up and drop it, and that's why it's good when they come on my boat, because I could fix that. I know what they're going to do wrong. So I'll tell them, and I'll stay with them, and until they got it right. Snap it, take a turn, leave that, let the lure almost pull you down, like try to make that rod like almost balance in your hand, and bang, and it'll really jump out on you when you feel the bottom, and snap it up, take a turn. Now sometimes you don't want to take a turn. Sometimes you're going to snap it up, and if the wind is pushing you, you're going to come baback down and hit the bottom again, snap up. You're not going to have to do anything. And sometimes if the wind's too strong, you might have to snap up. And if you don't hit the bottom on that turn, snap up and let a little line out, because now you're moving back away from it, but you're still imparting that action, and you're still you need the bottom. So it's not easy. All right, I'm not going to say it's easy as pie, but my friends and the people I have taught, I could have a ton of people behind me, vouching for me. This is like unbelievably effective. No matter where I go, Costa Rica, I was out at Washington for a wedding last year, and we were killing the salmon on snap-jigging. It's just super effective. It's just you got to learn it, and the more you practice and the more you learn it, the more you're going to catch, and it's just going to come on you. That's all we do. I mean, my friend Doug Brodsky from Blue Frog Bucktails, that's all he does now is snap jig. I mean, my girlfriend's nephew Anthony, that's all he does now is snap jig. I mean, it's that effective and that much fun. It's light, it's fun, extremely effective, and pretty much.
We have a question for you.
All right, what's that?
What rod do you use?
All right, the rod, like I said, the rod has to be a moderate rod. There are some out there. Triumph makes one from St. Croix, TS601 MF, I think it is. My favorite of all time is a Loomis SJR 722 GL2. They don't make the rod anymore. I don't know why. It was supposedly one of their best-selling rods, but they decided they weren't going to make it. They have a close one. It's I forget the name of it, but that works. I'm going to be making some rods out of a bunch of blanks that I just got that are perfect in the thing. Matt from Northeast Rod Works makes a great rod. This is a good rod. This is an awesome rod, my favorite. But it's got to have that moderate bend. If it doesn't, and that leverage is up high, your arm's going to kill you, and you're going to be doing the double snap, because you really can't do the snap. And I'll cheat. I'm not going to lie. I mean, if I'm fishing and it's a little slow and my arms are getting tired, I'll do the double thing. But when I know there's a fish around, I am snapping that thing. I mean, you're going to hear a whip, and that thing is going to make a loud noise as I swish it up, and the fish is going to hit. I mean, when I know the fish are there, I'm doing that.
Someone asked if in slack water and you start getting slack in the line and you're walking along the beach, do you walk with that line to keep the tension and keep it taut?
I rarely walk with the line. I mean, I'll take it. If you got a sweep on the beach, I'll take that into account as I cast. If you got a sweep from right to left, I cast a little bit to the right. It'll work it along. And the beach, you got to remember. I mean, I got a lot of fish this year right on the curl. You don't really have to cast all that far. And when they are on the curl, you don't have to use 3/4 or 1 ounce. You could drop down to a half, 3/8. And sometimes, especially when on that bay anchovy or that light stuff, they'll like crush that when they're not going to hit the other stuff.
Invite questions.
What's that?
Invite questions.
Does anybody have any questions out there?
Yeah, they can leave it. Another question. What knot do you tie on your bucktail specifically?
I don't use snaps. I don't like snaps. It's a little bit of just my own personal thing. But, if you see how this bucktail's hanging. So what I do is when I tie it on, or after every fish that I get or a hit, if I get a hit, I bring it in, my bucktail's like that. I'll just take it and go like that. Now it's straight up, and it'll stay like that after a cast. I just used an improved clinch knot on the bucktail. That's all. Sometimes if I'm using like a 3/4, I'll do double knot through the eye, and then go around and do the clinch knot, and that'll hold that right there. Now I don't know if that makes a difference, but it makes a difference to me. And if it makes me feel better and more confident, it's not going to hurt my fishing. It's only going to make it better.
Another question. Weight of the bucktail. In what situation, what weight would you use?
All right. You want that strong snap. So for the most part, I rarely go above what I call 3/4. It's actually a little heavier than 3/4. Once you get a little bit heavier than that, it's hard to get that snap off. I mean, you can, if you're in a deep area and you know the fish are there, by all means, go a little heavier. But it, I always like to say the lighter the better, because this is why. All right, you're a fish. You lived in the water your whole life. You know how things work. A bait fish in the water is neutral buoyant, so it's going to move with the ebb and flow and the current and the turbulence with the water, like it was part of the water, because it's neutral buoyant. You know what I mean? If you got a really heavy bucktail, like if you're throwing a 3-4 ounce bucktail, you hit the bottom, you bring it in, it's going to be like a rocket. It's going to be going like straight. That's like somebody throwing you a ball and it comes straight at you without an arc. It's just not natural to the fish. But when you got a lighter bucktail, and that you do that bucktail and it moves and undulates with the current, it's natural to the fish. Their guard is not up, and it just looks natural. It looks like they should eat it, and they do.
How long do you wait between snaps?
Oh, as soon as you snap up, you take a turn, because you got to take a turn. Because if you snap up and you don't take a turn and the fish hits as you start dropping, you got no place to set the hook. So you got to snap up, take a turn. So now if a fish hits, you have room to set the hook. But right away. I mean, nonstop. I mean, you can, go back down, go straight a little bit, and then give it a snap.
Zach wants to know, can you do this on a party boat?
I do it on a party boat a lot. I used to work on a party boat, the Fin Chaser in Montauk, and I'd have some of them customers going nuts. They'd come out the next day with all sorts of light tackle, and they just wouldn't put the time in. But yeah, you can definitely do it on a party boat. And the good thing about it is, especially party boats for sea bass, what I have found, and probably if you know somebody that's a really good sea bass fisherman will probably tell you, is the big sea bass do not like to stay under your boat. I don't care how small it is, how big it is. But if you cast out, you're more apt to get those bigger sea bass. I do it all the time. So, good thing about this is you're able to cast out, and you don't have to cast overhead. I mean, you could just, like, if you're on the party boat, you could just take it, hold the bucktail like that, go like that, and that thing will go out 50 yards. You could just slingshot it out, so you don't have to worry about casting like you do with a normal rod. And then just feel the bottom. I mean, I would suggest definitely being up by the bow. I wouldn't go in the middle of a bunch of people and doing it. But it's very effective, and pretty much get the pool winner almost, I'd say, more than half the time, probably way more than half the time.
Can you snap jig on a drifting boat?
Oh yeah, that's all we do.
Repeat my question.
Yeah, you could definitely snap jig on a drifting boat. I mean, that's what we do. We set up a drift, and you drift, and you wait for you see those rip lines. You see that rip line, you better be snapping hard when you hit that rip line. If you're going to be a little lazy, when you start hitting a rip, that's not the time to be lazy. That's where the fish are going to be. I mean, yeah, there'll be fish spread out all over the place, but the majority of the fish that are really feeding are maybe set up on rips. So when you're drifting, you're going to probably go over, depending on where you are. I mean, if you're, like I said, at Fire Island and you're going over by the Green Buoy and you got that one rip, you're going to have one rip. You're going to go up, go over the rip, and it works great. Up tide, down tide, on top of the rip, it definitely works good on the rips. But yeah, drifting is like very, very, it's exceptional. I mean, more so than I don't think I really ever anchored up, except when it's really windy for snap jigging. I did do a lot of anchoring up when I was going for the really big tide runners. This is extremely, extremely effective on really big weak fish, small weak fish. The weak fish love it.
We have a question. Do you ever tip your bucktails, or do you use them naked, or do you put gulp or anything like that on them?
No, I mean, I don't tip my bucktails. I got the feathers on there. That's more than enough. Fish have no problem hitting these things. And like I said, if you are going to tip, I would definitely, like, if you're snap jigging for, say, fluke. I mean, a little like sand eel gulp was not going to help. It's straight, it's streamlined. The bucktail you're using a bucktail, you're just tipping it. So that bucktail is going to hold it straight. And, it'll also give it, fluke, they do like a little meat on them. Not always, but a little meat. I mean, I was always a believer that gulp or bait would outfish snap jigging with fluke because, fluke and fluke. But I was out with my buddy Saul and my girlfriend Linny, and we were going just for fluke. So we're out off Northville, and there was some bass around. I didn't want bass, and I was using gulp for fluke. Saul was using bait, and Linny was snap jigging. She spanked us. She caught probably 4 times as much fish as me and Saul together, snap jigging little bay anchovies. Originally going for striped bass, but they were crushing them. So you really don't have to tip it all the time. But if there was one fish I would tip for, that would be fluke. That's the only one.
On the small rod and reel that you use in fresh water, what is the setup? Do you know the rod and reel and the size of the reel?
There's like so many small rod and reels right now. St. Croix has always been my favorite. Lamiglas has some. Usually I'm looking for 1 to 4 or 2 to 6 pound tests on the line limit. But I mean, I don't have glasses on. They never really used to come really big. And me and my buddy Bobby Antisi used to do a lot of freshwater fishing with these little 5-foot rods that we used to have Stan Henschel make up for us. And we used to throw our shoulder out trying to cast these little things. Thank God they're starting to make these a lot longer. It makes it a lot easier. Also, another thing that really is effective snap jigging, and I don't think anybody does it but me, is the steely rods. The 10-foot steely rod, 10.5-foot steely rod. It could throw these little tiny jigs a mile. And just to snap, all you got to do is jiggle it, and that rod tip snaps like 3 feet. Perfect. And it takes up the line, snap 3 feet. It's excellent. It's a blast to catch fish on. It's a blast to catch albies on. Any fish. I mean, it's, a good steely rod with 2-pound braid, 4-pound braid, 3-pound braid. They make 3-pound. It's all great. And again, the double uni knot. When you are using the light, I just want to get this out there. When you are tying the leader on with the really light line, I do about 9 or 10 turns with the braid side and then 6 with the mono side. I think that extra few turns on the braid really helps hold that tight and keeps the line from cutting into it, and it keeps it very strong. And again, even on this, you can see my knot is up here, and it's still got to go through there. So once you unfortunately, you need the brighter colored line to do this effectively. Even the light tackle, even the freshwater, you got to be able to see when you're on the bottom. The big largemouths love the bottom. Steelies love the bottom. So you still need that light line, and you need that long leader because of the light line. So because you're casting that knot through the guides, don't wait forever to change it, or that knot's going to get weakened by constantly hitting the guides.
I think you mentioned it earlier, but why do the fish react to this erratic snap?
Because first off, they react to this because it imitates exactly what a bait fish has been doing to them their whole life. Every time they come up on a bunch of bait and they go to get one, it darts away. Like I said, if it's in a school fish like a bunker or a school of shiners or bay anchovies, all they're trying to do at that moment is to get in front of their brothers and sisters and live for another few minutes until the fish comes back. But it does exactly what if you're a bait fish and if you're watching a bass chase a bait fish or come up behind a bait fish in the wild, somehow you're in a little booth somewhere watching this. As soon as that bait fish sees that bass on his butt, he's going to dart away as fast as he can because it's just instinct. And like I said, the bass knows, or the snook or whatever it is, knows that little bait fish can't keep it up for long. He's only going to go 3 or 4 feet, and he's going to be done with it. And they know that, as soon as that bait fish starts off, it's in their, I mean, I'm not going to say this, they're smart. It's in their reflexes to go after it, in my opinion. I'm not, like I said, I'm not a fisheries biologist, but also that hard snap also gives a bow wave that now excites, they not only get the visual aspect of the bucktail that, these bucktails look very, they're very lifelike. All my bucktails are lighter on the bottom, darker on top. The big eyes are very important. Like even, Freddie just mentioned it to me the other day, how he was like fishing with it and it lost the eyes and he stopped hooking up. I mean, the eyes are very important. But, you got the visual aspect of the fish seeing the bucktail that looks lifelike. Then you got the bow wave, the pressure that excites his lateral line. Everything is happening as it should. And it's only routine for the fish to go up there and grab it.
A lot of guys are fishing for white perch now. We had a couple questions about, will this technique work for white perch? And specifically, can you use this technique in shallow water, like 6 to 10 feet of water? You have to worry about jerking it too far and the jig coming out and hitting you in the face.
No, I mean, if you're in 6 to 10 feet, that's pretty deep water for perch. I mean, they got a good spot.
Well, just in general, is it safe?
No, I mean, you're still, even with the perch, you're still going to be one close to the bottom. Yeah, they'll come up a little bit. For the most part, they're going to be close to the bottom. And I snap jig. I mean, you could do this with the fly rod. I do a lot of fly rod fishing for white perch, and you throw it out there, and I'll snap with the fly rod just to get that same snap. And you want to snap. I mean, you don't have to race it in. I mean, you want to use lighter jigs, 16th ounce, 32nd ounce. You give it that snap. You get the bow wave, you get the visual aspect of it fleeing, but then it goes nice and slow. Now, this time of year, the water is very cold. The fish aren't, very even cold water fish like steelies in the wintertime, they get pretty sluggish. You go up there and catch one, and they're just like, put up a half-hearted fight. So you don't want to race it in. You want to make it slow. You want to snap it, but after that, you want to give a little bit of a slow time. Snap it, give it a little bit of a slow time. Let them have time to come up and catch it. All right. Larry
Lieberman wants to know, can you show that video again, that slow motion video again?
Sure.
Of the technique.
All right. I mean, and when I show this, you can watch. You watch me. In between, you'll see me watch that line. That's all I'm doing.
You might have to click it with the mouse.
All right. Now you can watch my line load up. I'll actually go down, bang, snap it up, get that line. The main thing is not how far you jig it. The main thing is getting it from 0 to 60 instantly. That's the most important thing. And even when I'm doing it really hard, sometimes I know there's a fish there, and I'll put it. I mean, I'll go ape. It'll sound like a jet, my rod, and you'll be surprised how many fish will hit when I do that. That didn't hit on the way I'm jigging it here. I mean, sometimes I got to put a little extra effort into it. You can see Derek behind me; he's doing a good job of it. Now watch. I'm looking at the line right now. I'm watching the line as I'm slowly dropping the tip. That's very important to slowly drop the tip. It makes it a hell of a lot easier to see the line hit the bottom when you're dropping the tip like that. And then, you just watch that line. As soon as you see any kind of movement in that line, it's either a fish or bottom, and you just snap it up. And, I fish the gut. I got video here fishing the gut. Race. All of Montauk. I can go all day bouncing bottom with the jig without ever hanging up, because you don't wait. As long as you don't wait for that jig to turn over and drag, it can't hook up on anything unless you hit the occasional monopile or a bunch of, garbage down there. But for the most part, as soon as you hit that bottom, you snap it up. You're not going to, I could go all day. The bottom of my jig wears out on the rocks, but I don't get snagged. You just keep snapping. As soon as it hits the bottom, as long as you're quick, and when you do this, it'll become like a second sense. You'll have a feeling. I could go like right now and my line will go limp. I know when I'm going to hit bottom. And, that all comes into play.
We have a question. Can you use this technique on offshore species like amberjack or tuna?
Yes, you can, just to make it short. I mean, the dolphin, the mahi go nuts. I keep my boat at just a quick little thing. I keep my boat at Westlake. And Chris Miller from Westlake was going going out for mahi, and he went out a couple times. I'm like, listen, dude, I was like, take this bucktail. It's a bucktail I make with that the mahi really like, and I was like, just give it a shot. So the first 2 times he goes out there, he doesn't try it, and then he's going out again, and I get a text message how they crushed the mahi on the bucktail. I mean, I can't even tell you how many fish he caught. He said he caught a ton of them on the bucktail, and they wouldn't hit bait, they wouldn't hit plugs, they wouldn't hit anything else, but they would hit the jig. It's extremely effective on mahi. The tuna, it's hard, but yeah, no, you'll get them on that. It's that they're more of a snap and then reel. Some fish, are more prone to the speed, and they are. But the tuna like albacore and bonita will definitely hit the snap.
We have a question also on the same line there. What color do you recommend for mahi-mahi?
All right. Orange. The main one I use is an orange jay. I don't have any jays here, but it's a regular bucktail, but then I got the variated feathers that are orange in color going down the back. That's number one. The bay anchovies work no matter where you are. All right. They work great everywhere. And the bright colored bucktails work good. It's the action, the erratic action that gets them. And like I said, I can have a lineup of people here that tell you how good that they work on mahi.
What's the deepest you've ever snap jigged?
The deepest I snap jigged and caught fish is probably about 180 feet. And I did that quite a bunch. So
after that, it may not be that effective?
Probably not. I just haven't done it. I really haven't been deeper than that. But we have no problem at 180 feet as long as you don't have a lot of current. Like if you're out at the Coimbra or any of those, I know another little wreck out in that area, and we snap jigged up some ling, cod, ling. That's another thing. All summer long, almost every trip, I get several cod, out of Montauk. I got the people from the Westlake going nuts because I come back all the time with cod, and I'm not going to Cox's Ledge. I'm in 50 to 75 feet of water catching sea bass and cod. The cod love this. And nobody else is getting them. I don't understand it, but we have no problem getting cod to 15 pounds. Almost every chart it comes back with a few cod. It's extremely effective on species like cod that you wouldn't really associate with jigging or snap jigging. Cod, the blackfish, it's just. I don't have the picture here. We caught a wreckfish snap jigging in 50 feet of water. Them things are supposed to be in like 1,200 feet. A decent sized wreckfish out of Montauk. You catch, all the southern species, catch everything.
One of our viewers thinks you're Billy Joel, wants to know when you're going to be back on tour.
Nah. You trust me. I don't sing like Billy Joel. But, like I said, as far as the colors, people, usually I get a question about colors. I'm more inclined to go with shades. I always want the darker shades up top because once that bucktail gets down to a certain depth, all you have is shades anyway. You lose red light very quick, yellows, green. You're pretty much, all you got is shades.
We have a question. Can you catch tog snap jigging?
Blackfish?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a couple years ago when we had that solar eclipse in August. I was out fishing. My boat got rocked by a whale. Not my fault. I was videotaping from afar. The son of a gun came over by me. I didn't see him. He went down and just almost threw me out of the boat. But I came inshore, and I was on some of the high pieces off the windmills off Block Island. And I was just snap jigging for some big sea bass and getting some big sea bass. Because I love eating sea bass. I don't know who doesn't. And also I get a fish. I'm like, what the heck is this? I bring up a 12-pound blackfish on the bay anchovy. Another time I'm at a small bridge out in Southold. Not to burn any spots. There's many small bridges out there. But it's a good bridge for a smaller bass, up to keeper size, maybe 10 pounds. So I'm there and I'm snap jigging. Bang, I get a hit. Not a bass. Bring it in. It's like a 6-pound blackfish. I'm like, what the heck? I'm only in 4 or 5 feet of water. Throw them back. The very next cast, I get like a 5-pound blackfish. And it's one little creek. The place is polluted with shiners. So I'm pretty sure blackfish have no problem eating bait fish. That's why when the sand eels are around. We get them very well on the snap jigging on the shoal. We have any other questions there?
I think that's it. Maybe one call out for any more questions, and we're going to.
Any more questions? I know. I mean, if this was a seminar, after I said, all right, that's it, 1,000 people come up. So come on, get a question in if you have it.
Somebody wants to know, when is the best time to snap jig from the shore?
When the fish are there. I mean, seriously. I mean, you don't want to go to the beach when there's 12-foot waves, but as long as you can get over the waves and handle the waves and have no problem getting a decent sized fish in, because you will get decent sized fish. You'll catch bigger and more fish than a guy using, a tin and teaser next to you or whatever. I mean, like I said, from shore, I constantly have people coming up all the time asking what I'm doing. My friends constantly have people coming up asking them what they're doing. I mean, Freddie Galafaro has people coming up asking him all the time what he's doing. It's that effective that they take note that you're the only one catching fish on the beach, or as many fish as you are. I mean, it's usually you're out fishing everybody within sight. I mean, that's how good and effective it is.
A lot of people want to know more about your bucktails, how they get them. Do you have a website?
All right, I've been about my bucktails. I mean, I tie great bucktails, but I'm a horrible businessman. I am in the process of getting stock. So by springtime, the website should be up. Everything should be fully stocked, and you should be able to get whatever you want in the spring. I don't think there's going to be much need or a call for them right now, but we are getting stocked up. I am getting plenty of bucktails stocked up. My bucktails are they're made with black nickel mustad hooks. Their heads are airbrushed, and they're epoxy coated. They're turned for 36 hours on a wheel every head. The feathers are not strung saddle hackle, which breaks after the first fish. I have a ton of people that could tell you that they've caught over 100 fish on my bucktail. Maybe not a ton, but probably half a dozen people that will tell you they've caught over 100 fish on my bucktail. My friend Brian, I think he's over 200 on one bucktail. It looks like crap now, but he's got over 200 fish on that, including bluefish. I mean, bluefish, no matter what, whoever makes whatever is going to destroy it, but he lucked out and he's got a few, bluefish on it. But as far as stripers, I'll use this until I break it off before the feathers come off, unless a bluefish hits it. Any others? So that's about it. It's my first time doing this. I hope it went well. I hope it was informative to you. I'm sure if some people were here, there would be some more questions that, I missed, but hopefully you learned it. Hopefully you'll try it. And like I said, just, go around the corner and start and learn one area and then learn another area. And as soon as you start doing it, the more you do it, the more fish you're going to catch. And the more, it's going to be your favorite. I promise you, it's going to be your favorite way to fish. All right. So I think that's it for the night. Thank you for showing up and watching.